Gummy yummies.
Yes. This is Travis. Travis is here from Arizona, never been to Idaho, so.
Right.
Wow.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Oh.
Checks all the bucket list there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you from again?
Phoenix.
Okay. Hot.
Very
I know,
nice.
super hot.
Nice place in April.
Exactly. Yeah. It's good for about 2 months out of the year, but I'm gonna go ahead and roll right in here. So we're gonna talk about the gummies today, which when you think about gummies, you're probably thinking, how much can you really talk about gummies? This is something we've been in the works for about a year and a half now. It's taken us a while to really figure out a way that we could do a format that historically has been pretty simple. Gummies are essentially candy plus vitamins, and that's really what it is, right? But being able to do that with kind of the same consistency that Garden of Life tries to do with all of our products, and so just making a choice there. But there's really three things that we try to do at Garden of Life. Three things that go into our development process with all of our supply chains and formulations. And it really comes down to this. We want to be whole food as a company. We want to be organic, and we want to be non-GMO. Those are the three things that we're trying to accomplish. And I think that no matter what type of diet strategy someone ends up finding best for them, whether it's vegan or paleo or Weston Price or whatever, if you're not those three things, then I think in certain ways that's taking away from not just the nutritional quality of your food, but at the same time the sourcing, where the sourcing is coming from, making sure that's clean, it's transparent, you know where it's coming from. So we make supplements, which is different from grocery and bulk and dairy and frozen. It usually ends up being the most processed ingredients in your store are typically supplements, right? It's isolates and synthetics, and that's not to say these are bad. It's just to say that when you have so many more steps that are involved in making a product, all the more so sourcing and transparency becomes a concern. And so that's why we don't just ask you guys to just rely on the logo. It says Garden of Life, therefore it's good. That shouldn't be the case. We work with third-party organizations, and that's really who holds us accountable. Ultimately, it's you guys who hold us accountable because you choose whether or not to put us on the shelf. But we take pride in working with the National Organics Program with everything that we do, the non-GMO project. We have easily the lion's share of the most organic and non-GMO supplements in the industry, and we want you guys to hold us accountable to that. We want to maintain that standard for everything that we do. So going from there into gummies, I'll be quite honest, we've been working on this for a little over a year, almost a year and a half. And when I first heard we were doing gummies, I was a little bit embarrassed. I'm sure when you guys heard we were doing gummies, I was like, what's going on here? It's like we jumped the shark or something. But it all comes back to what traditional gummy making is all about, and could we do it kind of the Garden of Life way, but probably more importantly, do it the My Kind way. So just a little bit of a background on My Kind. I know you guys are familiar with the My Kind Organics line, but this product is very, very simple. My Kind Organics gets all the vitamins and minerals from standardized herbal extracts. That is the source of our vitamins for the My Kind line. And for a lot of the other lines now, even our sports line is using some of those My Kind vitamins in there. But these are different than synthetics and isolates, right? They're not being made in the lab. They're not being, it's not purified to a point where it's 100% pure one chemical compound. They're not even a cultured vitamin, like a Vitamin Code, Mega Food, New Chapter. These are wonderful vitamins, but that's where you're starting with isolates, and then you're making them more food-like through a fermentation process, right? Through yeast and bacteria and fruits and vegetables. These are different. These are standardized herbal extracts for vitamins and minerals. So a perfect example would be like iron. We get our iron from curry leaves. All of these extracts are coming from a company called Orgen. That's O-R-G-E-N. You can go to orgenfamily.com and look at the raw material information on all the different extracts and what rates they standardize to. But our iron, we get it from curry leaves, and that's a 3.6% iron extract from curry leaves. So it literally takes us, for our prenatal tablets, it's 3 a day. We have 18 milligrams of iron in there. It takes 500 milligrams of curry powder, curry extract powder, just to give you 18 milligrams of iron. So when it gets to the point of, why is a whole food diet good for you? Why is a very dense and diverse diet good for you? It's not just about the vitamins, the minerals, the fats, the carbs, the proteins. It's really about all that other stuff. It almost becomes its own macronutrient, that class of compounds, phytochemicals and polyphenols and all the other wonderful glycosides and alkaloids, all these other compounds that you find naturally in whole food all these other compounds, that's really what's missing from the Western diet, right? There's really two things at the end of the day you don't get from a standard American diet. Number one would probably be fiber, right? And number two is getting all of those phytochemicals, that big class of compounds. So we are trying to, as a supplement company, add back in all those things that are already missing from a Western diet, or to bolster what someone is doing in their diet right now by giving them hundreds of milligrams of other phytochemicals, not just the vitamins and minerals. So it is a full spectrum extract for every single one of these. We get a lot of our B vitamins from guava, from lemons, from a couple different herbs. Holy basil we get some B vitamins from. We get niacin from holy basil. We're getting our vitamin C from amla berries. So across the board, these are all botanical extracts. They're all being grown right on the same farm, and they're being extracted at the same place. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, and that's Origin. That's the Origin facility that's doing the extraction, and it's using only water. So there's no solvents that are being involved except for just water. And there was actually 4 patents that were awarded for this extraction process because, as you can imagine, getting beta carotene or vitamin E, tocotrienols, getting those out of annatto seeds, that's not the easiest thing to do using just water. These are fat-soluble compounds. So they got 4 patents awarded for what they were able to accomplish with these extracts. But that is really the magic behind the MyKind line. It is a food-based vitamin through and through. There's no synthetics, no isolates that are being added into it. Every single microgram of this each vitamin or mineral is coming from those botanical extracts. And so historically we had our tablets, and we didn't just stop with those extracts. We actually reconfigured how to make a tablet using more food-like ingredients. Like instead of using shellac, which is beetle shell, lac resin, we're using palm oil, right? Sustainably sourced palm oil to give you that nice glaze on the tablet. So just across the board, we were able to replace all those excipients with food. And so when it came to a new format being gummies, that was really the biggest challenge for us, was could we make a gummy that was consistent with what the MyKind line is all about, and more importantly, what we're all about, and probably ultimately what the natural foods industry is all about, which is good food, cleanly sourced. And so in order to develop our gummies, just kind of before kind of diving into our process, just real quickly, we should all be very familiar with the gummy making process. This is not to pick on anybody, this is just the nature of the game, right? So when you're making gummies, you have to start with sugar and syrup, right? Because the reason why people buy gummies is because they taste good. Probably more importantly than that, we started making gummies and decided that we were going to do this process, not this process, but the gummy process, really for 2 reasons. Number one, gummies are selling. They're popular. Last year alone, there was $840 million worth of gummy vitamins sold in the U.S., right? So this is a giant slice of the pie. And my first thought is obviously, well, man, why aren't these people taking tablets? They need to be taking tablets and capsules. But the biggest thing that we found when we did some market research was the vast majority of people who buy gummy vitamins are customers who were not buying vitamins beforehand, and they would not buy vitamins if it wasn't in a gummy. So this truly is a new customer, it's a new demographic, and so I think giving this option, especially, there you go, a little hit and run there, especially for like kids, obviously that's probably the biggest demographic that benefits from something that tastes good, but obviously there's challenges to overcome. There was a reason why we decided we were going to do gummies, because we felt like it was possible for us to do it the MyKind way. So starting with sugar and syrup, this is how traditional gummies are made, and if it's not sugar and syrup, it's a lot of sugar or it's a lot of syrup. And then you go from there to colors and flavors, because you don't want it to just be sugar flavored. The natural foods industry, I'm sure if you guys have other brands of gummies on the shelf, they're probably using organic syrup, so it's a step above. And then the same thing's true with using like a natural or an organic flavor. The natural foods industry has certainly improved upon this traditional process. And then you have your gelatin in the middle, and our marketing team really wanted to pull on your heartstrings by put a little baby pig there, and people would be like, oh no, not babe, anything but we don't have any problem with gelatin at Garden of Life. Gelatin is a wonderful nutritional ingredient. It's become very popular, as you guys are aware. Collagen, gelatin, connective tissue proteins, broths, things like that. But for us, we couldn't do gelatin because this is a vegan line. It's a vegan certified line. On top of the fact that most gelatin for gummy making comes from pigs, and that becomes a kosher concern on a kind of a national level. But we use pectin. Most of the natural brands are starting to use pectin more so. And then you get to the actual vitamins. This is what justifies it as a supplement, right? And so USP isolates are typically what to use, and there's really 2 reasons for that. Number one, they tend to be a little cheaper than a more whole food ingredient, and then next to that, they take up much less space, right? So you think about that, kind of going back to something like that iron. If there was iron in a gummy, you're talking about milligrams versus hundreds of milligrams if it's from an extract versus an isolate. And then lastly, believe it or not, for us to be non-GMO verified, we actually had to find a manufacturer that was non-GMO in nature, in terms of when these gummies are coming out of the machine and they're dropping into the trays to dry. Every gummy manufacturer that we know of in the US uses some sort of starch, right, on the trays to prevent it from sticking, and that's a necessary step. But every single one is using GMO starch, right? Most of it's cornstarch. And so right off the bat, just the gummy making process, it was not going to be non-GMO unless we found a new manufacturer that could put this all together for us. And so that was a little serendipitous, because that got us in connection, in contact with a company called Yankee. They're based in Sweden. If you didn't already tell from the name, it's spelled Jahnske. And what they are doing is called a fruit inclusion. They've been around for decades. They basically make more fruit leather type of gummy products, mostly candy products that they sell historically. But we worked with them first and foremost because they're not using cornstarch. They use rice flour, right? And so they were able to use, you see around the bottom, you see all the little rice flour specks. That's not sugar, that's not starch, that's rice flour, rice meal, same thing. And really the magic of what makes these gummies consistent with my kind, consistent with Garden of Life, consistent with this industry, is they're not using sugar and syrup as the base. It is actual fruits, apples and peaches. That's it. It's 5 apples and 4 peaches per bottle. That's what it takes to get that base down. And I'll go ahead and pass these around if you guys want. So there's no added sugar to these. Everything is coming from the apples and the peaches. And then what you have is the little gum drops, which are the adults. And then the weird shapes. I'm gonna let you guys guess. Do those look like bears to you?
They don't look like bears. I do.
They do not look like bears at all to me.
So you want to sit down the whole couple?
That's right, all at once.
Really?
No.
Well, a serving is 4. Some of them are kids and some are adults. And I think a few accidentally fell in there.
Uh-oh.
I said I
Without-
just took one.
Without touching them, you know.
There you go. So the official age is 4 and up, but when it comes to RDAs,
There's
right?
a few extras for
One
the little
per
ones.
age will probably get it
She's
done
got
for
one
you.
right now.
There you go. Yeah, I have a little guy. He's almost 2.
Yum
and
yum.
I can tell you right now, that's the best part of his day is when I open that cabinet. Like you have to you gotta make sure he's not looking.
They have the click seals on them, so
Yeah.
like,
They
a
do.
2-year-old can't just access that bottle.
Right.
7 and 8-year-olds know how to open them.
So
now,
that's
I
an
tell
important point. Because before I get into anything else, there's one nutrient that's not in any of these gummies. Even if it's prenatal or men's or women's or whatnot, it's iron. Iron is not in any gummy in this industry. There's only one SKU that I'm even aware of nationally. It's from a very small brand. You see it every once in a while. That one is like an iron gummy. It's sold for that reason, and it's for kids, of all things. But we didn't put gummies or iron in these gummies really for 3 reasons. Number one, it's the kid concern. Most kids' vitamins typically don't have a lot of iron, if any at all, because of the concern of overdosing, especially from a gummy perspective. But number 2, iron tastes really gross. It is very bitter. It has a very alkaline taste to it, so that becomes a concern, making something that tastes okay. But the last concern for us was space. So we use iron from that curry leaf, and it would have ended up being like 6 or 7 gummies per serving if we had that extract in there, because that's one of the bigger extracts by weight that we would be using in any of our My Kind. But when it comes to the base of the product, it is apples and peaches.
You just gotta get the My Kind liquid iron if you need iron.
There you go. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Next to that, we're using the My Kind sources. Does that make sense? Those botanical extracts, exactly what's happening. It's no different than like a milk thistle extract or a turmeric extract. It's just that the rates at which we're looking for that active compound typically stays between 3 to 7%. So all the other weight of the product is all the other phytochemicals that are coming through.
What kind of an extract is it?
It's a water extract.
Okay.
Yeah, so they do water extraction, and then they get left with this liquid, right? And then they use what's called falling film evaporation to dry it into a powder. So there's a couple ways you can dry liquid, obviously. You can just boil the water out straight up. You're gonna lose some potency there. You can do spray drying. That typically involves a carrier, so now you're watering down that final material with some sort of starch. What they do is called falling film evaporation, which is really neat. It's basically, it looks like a big giant silo, and then from the top of the silo is a nozzle, and they spray this finished extract through the nozzle, and the temperature in the silo is much lower, and it's also kind of a vacuum, so the air pressure is much much lighter than what's outside. So what ends up happening is you spray dry, or you spray this this extract down through the silo, and then as it's falling, the moisture content gets pulled away. And it doesn't get heated at all. So by the time it reaches, it's about 30 feet high. By the time it reaches the bottom, it's a powder. So it's a really cool process, but it allows you to maintain the potency while at the same time turning it into a finished product without a carrier. So that's exactly how they make that final powder, and then they ship it to us, and then we make the tablets or the gummies out of it. But to glue it all together, we're using pectin from organic apples and oranges. And so that gives it kind of that gummy kind of consistency. But if you guys tried it, it's more of a fruit leather gummy than it is an actual gummy, and that's because that's literally what the ingredients are. And so, this is kind of probably the most important slide of the deck here, and it really comes down to the main difference we wanted to accomplish with this line, which is that every single ingredient that's being used to make the gummies is an ingredient that is GRAS approved, generally recognized as safe, meaning that it can go right into any other item in the store and not be considered a supplement ingredient, right? And so because of that, we were able to put a nutrition facts panel right on the label, which is legally different than a supplement facts panel, and it comes down to those ingredients and how the product kind of functions as. It functions as a food, less so than a supplement, even though the dosages are there. So we're really excited about that. Unfortunately,
So is this an EBT product then?
so that's the legal distinction, right? And I'm glad you brought that up, because unfortunately, it was a short-lived victory for us. We checked with DSHEA, we checked with FDA, we checked with USDA. Everything was, on the up and up. And then when we sat down at the table, and the only reason I'm mentioning it is because this is the store I came from. I came from a Whole Foods in Phoenix. We sat down with Whole Foods on a corporate level, and they said, we will not accept any product unless it has a supplement tax panel, right? If it's going to be sold in whole body, which is their supplement department, we're mandating that it's going to have a supplement tax panel. And their biggest concern was the EBT issue, right? What happens when someone wants to buy this? Well, legally they can, because it says nutrition facts panel on it, and that's exactly the distinction. But at the same time, it was just something they didn't want to deal with. So we will be switching over to a supplement facts panel, because hey, we gotta play ball with the big boys, the big stores, the big retail accounts, I guess. But
Play home.
yeah, with that being said, none of the ingredients will change, none of the formulations will change. It'll be exactly what it is. It'll just say supplement facts, but it's
So
on there now.
They are changing the
Yeah, they're
labels
kinda making
just
us.
because Whole
No, well,
Foods-
there's good reason. It's
Well, yeah, there is a
long story.
secondary reason to it, and it comes down to, without getting too far in the weeds, basically, Prop 65 has really ravaged the food industry in California. That's the heavy metal law that got passed in California, and while the intent was completely noble, and I think it was for a good cause, really the intent of the law was to focus on environmental contamination of heavy metals in industrial processing. Less so, it was never intended to deal with raw food items as they're naturally produced. So under Prop 65, 2 tablespoons of flax seeds would not be compliant with Prop 65 because of the natural levels of heavy metals that just come in flax seeds. This is not to say flax seeds are dirty. They can be organic, cleanly grown, but plants naturally uptake, the minimal amount of heavy metals that are in the soil. And so, things like kale and carrots, none of these beets certainly would not be Prop 65 compliant, even though they can be organic produce. So it's kind of an overextension of Prop 65, but because of that, there's a couple of consumer advocacy groups that have kind of taken the charge of, we are going to enforce Prop 65 for the food industry, and one of the casualties of that has been the big retailers, where they're just getting picked off left and right about these little issues. One of the most recent ones was Moringa. This advocacy group was trying to sue Whole Foods because they wanted every single product in their store that had Moringa in it to have a warning sign on the label saying this is not safe for pregnant women, right? So you can do your own research. I've never seen any issue with consumption of Moringa and pregnant women, but they decided they wanted to make this an issue, and so it was kind of a legal battle. And when they saw that these were going to have nutrition facts panels, they thought this advocacy group, this is going to be a prime target for them to try and come after us over the EBT thing, even though legally it was acceptable. So long story short, we're going to be switching over.
Oh, you gotta go.
I gotta go. I'm sorry.
No, you're
I have a
totally
doctor's
fine.
appointment
Thank you
at 4.
so much
Oh,
for
thank you
hanging
for staying.
out.
No.
Yeah, it's
Make
good
sure
to
we
see
get
you.
guys
You
a
guys be
sample.
safe.
Yeah.
Bye, bye.
Take care.
So with that being said, there's 7 SKUs in the line. We have 2 kids, which you saw. I think you tried the fruit flavor. That's going to be the bears. And
Actually,
then-
it was cherry.
oh, that was the cherry one. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
And then we have the men's, the women's, 40 plus for each, and then a prenatal as
This
well.
one's my personal favorite. Because
Which one
it
is
peaches.
Yeah.
Organic fruit.
And one thing you'll notice is that these have a little
all
bit more of
good.
a chewy texture because there's less vitamins in there, so it's more room for like pectin and things like that. But the adults is in kind of the gumdrop form, and so the men's I'll start with because this is kind of your base formula. The nutrient levels don't change too much between men's and women's, as they shouldn't, right? The RDAs are very similar across the board unless you're pregnant or elderly, really. But with that being said, this is kind of your base formula. And then the men's 40 is going to have 100 milligrams of Flowen's cranberry extract. That's for prostate. That's going to be per each serving. The women's is going to have 100 milligrams of the Pat cranberry for UTI support. And then the women's 40 is going to have 100 milligrams of black cohosh. All these are organic extracts. The black cohosh, the only thing I'll say about black cohosh is a lot of people sometimes are concerned, is it safe? Can I take this? Black cohosh is non-estrogenic. It will not alter or change or modify estrogen production or balance of estrogenic hormones in the body. What it does is it's more of a mitigation of menopausal-like symptoms. So that's where black cohosh has most of its research kind of showing that it has any efficacy at all, but certainly it's safe. And then lastly, we have our prenatal, which is just going to beef up all the B vitamins and the RDA levels to get you some more support. So, one thing about gummies is gummies are never going to be the same potency as a tablet. A lot of that has to do with being able to still make a gummy that'll hold together with all that powder in there from the vitamins, but at the same time making it taste decent as well. So, with that being said, gummies are still kind of servicing a demographic that was not consuming vitamins beforehand. So we felt like in this industry, especially the natural foods industry, if a gummy were to exist, wouldn't it be nice if it was made out of all food? Wouldn't it be nice if it was organic? Wouldn't it be nice if it was non-GMO? And that's kind of what we're trying to be as a company, everything across the board that we make. And it's because honestly, we're doing it, this store is, kind of focused more on organic because we believe it's healthier, first and foremost, but it's working. The organic movement is marching on. We've seen a doubling of organic SKUs available just among supplements in the natural foods industry over the last 18 months. It went from 4%, now it's knocking on the door of 8%. So it's only happening because consumers are demanding it. You guys are offering it and educating consumers. That's why they're coming here, right? This is the natural food stores. And ultimately, it's encouraging raw material suppliers to actually make organic raw materials. So that's where the rubber meets the road, is when raw material manufacturers and growers are willing to actually invest more in organic. And so we want to, honestly, at the end of the day, just be the brand that this industry is all about when it comes to transparency and sourcing and quality. So hold us to that until your dying day. Make sure that Garden of Life is being consistent with what you think this industry is about, and if not, let us know. But do you guys have any questions about the gummies, about anything? We got our sports line out now. We got a whole lot of stuff. You guys know us, Garden of Life. We make a lot of stuff.
Anything that's been on your mind?
What's keeping you up at night when it comes
I
to
know,
Garden of
it
Life?
never ends and it's not stopping.
When are the bars going to be back?
Yeah,
Stuff,
that's a big
right?
one.
Oh, actually, I got an update. I haven't
Oh,
even
did
read
you?
it.
Yeah, pull it up. Yeah, when we first forecasted what the bars were going to do, we thought it was going to be around 10,000 trays, 10,000 cases, and within the first couple months, we blew through 18,000. So we had no idea. You would think we've been around for 17 years, we would figure this kind of stuff out by now, but yeah, believe it or not, we just missed the mark on production. But you said you got an update, huh?